Welcome to this special video link that I provided you as you've now successfully completed the Fascinate test. And I want you to get the best out of this test as a first tool to help you identify and celebrate your creative uniqueness. Now, of course, like any kind of test, it will have a lot of generic language. It's trying to reach out to a whole lot of different kinds of professions. So my aim in this video is also to help, in a way, interpret and translate some of the detail in this for you as a creative, particularly as an actor, if that's what you've done the test with relation to. So I'm going to take you through each page of the profile to really help you understand and live out more fully your creative uniqueness in terms of what you do at your best, how you do it, and why you do it. So we're going to begin, first of all, with the cover. And with your particular test, you will have the archetype that has been identified from collecting the data about the way you responded to the test. And that archetype is defined by the two primary communication styles that were identified as your uniqueness. Here, for me, I'm the provocateur. That is my archetype, and that provocateur arises out of innovation being my first primary communication style, followed by mystique as my second communication style. So what I aim to do in the first part of this video is take you through from page 1 then to page 4, and I'll also integrate it with some slides that will kind of spell out the detail, what things to look for on each page, and also just unpack a bit more what we mean by each of the 7 communication styles that are identified by the Fascinate tool. I hope you also get to appreciate this is a tool just to help get you going, get you started, to start to really notice in your own life, in your working practice, even in your relationships, how you manifest your uniqueness, particularly through your primary and secondary communication styles. So we've looked at page 1. Now let's look to page 4, and I'm going to go to the slides and take you through this. By the way, have a paper and pen handy as you work through this video with me, because there'll be certain points where I will pause the conversation and invite you to reflect on your own response to each part of the test report, the profile. So let's now look at page 4. So page 4 at a glance identifies your fascination advantages. First of all, your primary advantage, as I mentioned, for me, that's innovation. And that's about what you do at your best. This is what you are most comfortable with, most familiar with in the way you interact with others and bring value to the various things you do with others, which can include your acting craft, but also, if you think more broadly, your whole creative uniqueness, how you express yourself. Then we see your secondary advantage. In my case, mystique. We're going to explore this secondary advantage is how you do what you do at your best. On this page, you can also see below primary and secondary advantage, it also mentions your dormant advantage, and I'm going to spend a bit more time unpacking what that means. As it notes there, your dormant advantage is the one that holds the least potential for you in fascinating others. And then if you look below that on your profile, you'll see that Sally Hogshead, who is the creator and founder of the Fascination Advantage, there, if you click on that video, she unpacks what your archetype is, what it means for you to have your particular combination of a primary communication style and a secondary communication style. Now, let's, as we move to page 5, this is where I really want to encourage you to be playful and explore how the world sees you in your uniqueness, and in particular, how the world sees you with your particular creative uniqueness. So I encourage you not to get it all stuck if, as you read through the various descriptors associated with your archetype, that you don't get stuck on perhaps some of the context in which the archetype is described that may not resonate with you. So some of these archetypes are toned towards people who are engaged in companies, in full-time employment. They might be working in a team, but you often as a creative might be a solopreneur. You're out there marketing yourself as a sole trader with your acting skills, with your creative skills. And so I'll be encouraging you to think openly, be playful around how we approach meeting your archetype. So first of all, I invite you to take note of how the world sees you. I'll just use mine as an example. So it states that as a provocateur, while I tend not to draw attention to myself, my ideas can be very attention-getting. Unorthodox and independent, I bring novel approaches and smart thinking to companies. I'd interpret that, bring that smart thinking to all the groups or individuals that I might work with, that my work is usually cutting edge. I find unexplored niches for existing products or services, we could interpret that. I'm even able to dream up new business models in mature industries. And I like to change the rules of how to do business or how to be a creative communicator. It notes that I'm potentially less overtly creative than other innovation personalities. I don't over communicate, but that also adds to the curiosity that I provoke, that I say so much and then I might pause. And you may want to be intrigued and want to know more. So that's very much me as a provocateur, particularly using my mystique as my second. Then you'll see the section below that talks about the highest and best of the provocateur. That's my archetype. And then we look to the third section, which is what is not the highest and best value of my archetype, the provocateur. You can look at your archetype. So for me, I don't follow the beaten path or adhere to protocol. I prefer to explore new ways of doing business, and that I might be of most value to a company when I'm allowed to run with my own revolutionary ideas, which means I'm not going to necessarily fit very conservative organizations that actually just want to get on with the status quo. So that's me as a provocateur. So I invite you now to pause what you're doing and pause and look, review what's on your page 5, and perhaps jot down any recollections of moments in your work, in your creative practice, that might affirm some of the descriptors in this page of your profile. So I hope you found that rewarding and that it may have encouraged and affirmed some of the things you already noticed kind of at a gut level that are a part of you, but you've actually now perhaps documented moments or occasions where others have affirmed and said, we really appreciate what you do here, really value the uniqueness you bring here. Maybe not using the word unique, but certainly using words that suggest that this is something special that you bring. I know in my experience, as I've now consciously noticed that I am that provocateur and that I love to innovate, but I also like to attend to what's going on beneath the surface so that I can bring my mystique to discern patterns and offer new possibilities. And I've had affirmations from people that I have worked with in the past who've said that they really appreciate my capacity to listen and to see things in a way that they'd never seen them before, and encourage them to see things in a fresh and indeed often provocative light. So I hope that you're starting to tune in to what are the unique things that you bring out of your communication styles that perhaps you took for granted, but now as you've paused, you've noted this is something that others see and are fascinated by in you as your creative uniqueness. So now let's go on to page 6, rather. We're going to be looking now at your top 5 specialty adjectives, and these are for your archetype. So for me, my top specialty adjectives are clever, adept, contemporary, state-of-the-art, and surprising. And it gives in the report a brief descriptor about what it means by a provocateur being clever. So I'll just read one. For example, provocateurs create novel solutions. Their energy drives them forward to implement their ideas. When you think a product is at the end of its life cycle, they, that is the provocateurs, find a new market to keep the product selling. Now, again, this is where I invite you to interpret each of these specialty adjectives and the descriptor that goes with a broad, open, interpretive mind. So I may not be selling a product, but I certainly am providing services as I seek to support the well-being of actors and other creatives. So I can think about, okay, how do I apply that cleverness, or how have people seen me apply that cleverness? So you'll see, for me, adept provocateurs are one of the smartest people in the room. Provocateur is an expert in the field, highly skilled at what they do. For them, proficiency is a key component to everything they do. Contemporary, they stay relevant. If their products or services start to fall behind times, they'll do their best to give them a fresh outlook. State of the art, progressive and pioneering. Provocateurs are rarely constrained by orthodoxy. Self-confident, they participate actively in board meetings and propel companies' offerings into the future. And surprising, provocateurs are irreverent. They surprise their co-workers with unconventional ideas. You'll, that is the general public, enjoy their Facebook updates. Never boring. They share original ideas, jokes, and even edgy pictures. Well, I don't know if that's quite me, but certainly that notion of surprising, I certainly try to inject in what I do. As you read through your 5 specialty adjectives, again, let's take a moment to pause, let you write down any thoughts, remembrances, moments when people have named this experience they have with you. And I believe you'll find some great value in doing that, as I found when I completed my Fascinate test too. Then below those 5 specialty adjectives, you'll see there's ways that invites you to consider how a person who has this archetype might start to position themselves in what's called their anthem. This is like a 2 to 3 word declaration, a theme of what they do in their best and how they do it. You'll note here there's a sample that will say, at my highest value, I deliver, and gives just a simple 2-word statement, clever approach, an adjective and a noun. Now, there's more description about how you might start to create an anthem, and that's certainly an additional service that I'd be happy to engage with you in if you're interested. And I'll give you more information about how you could explore that further development of your archetype at the end of this video presentation. But you also see there's 1-minute coaching to the provocateur, in my case, my archetype. So check that out as well. Now, as we continue, you'll come up to now page 7, which particularly highlights where your archetype sits in the 49 personality archetypes. It will identify your key archetype, which is based on your primary and your secondary advantages. And as you may recall from the video that Sally Hogshead provided, if you flip your primary and secondary, so you look at the column for your secondary advantage and then map that to your primary, and that can be very helpful to just give you another way of looking at who you are in your creative uniqueness. And all of the personalities are broken down with their top 3 descriptors. So if you're thinking, I'm not sure if my one quite matches here, this is a good place to go to see if there might be another archetype that you feel resonates more. And if you find that having done the test, that something's not right, it doesn't seem to connect with who you are, please do send me an email. I have had 1 or 2 occasions in my experience so far with coaching people on this where the match didn't work, and we actually found that we need to do a different combination of the primary and secondaries in order for it to really truly speak to their creative uniqueness. So do let me know. But then we go on to page 9. And we have a full, and this is where we first of all look at your primary advantage in more detail. So what I'm going to share on the screen is my primary advantage, and I'll also share with you a few reflections on how that resonates with me in my creative uniqueness. So you'll see on the slides here, my primary personality descriptors are: I embrace opportunities for change and exploration, driven by a profound sense of adventure and creativity. I captivate with spontaneity and a quick wit. I value creativity and cutting edge thinking, and I attract attention because of changing the game. And I must say that really resonates with me, because as a person who's been very passionate about the well-being of creatives, in particular actors, which I've been engaged with for now over 20 years, I find myself very easily looking to think about, how can we do things differently? How can we do things better so that we don't cause injury and long-term harm to creatives whom we value so deeply, or whom I value so deeply? When I also look at the personality descriptor for this primary advantage, it talks about me being as an innovator, creative, visionary, and entrepreneurial. And that rings true, because just the fact that I've created the Actor Wellbeing Academy is a vision I have, and a way of really advancing the well-being of actors. Again, to our chart, how I add value: quickly solve problems with fresh solutions, able to generate ideas that surprise people with a new perspective, and that people watch to see what I'll do next because I thwart tradition. And that's something which I will admit I've had as a challenge. Like, if I want to really lean into my creative uniqueness, I am the kind of person who is going to challenge tradition if I see the tradition is keeping people stuck. If you go to the next page, this is page 10, we're now looking at your secondary advantage. So again, I'll share the slides for my secondary advantage, talk you through again what I think are things that have resonated with me that I feel I'm living out. And then you may like to pause after these two segments and look at your two advantages, and again identify where you see these things already resonating with you and playing out. The whole journey of going through this profile is to really help you embody and own and indeed celebrate your creative uniqueness. Let's look to my secondary advantage as an example. My secondary advantage being Mystique. The secondary personality descriptors that a Mystique is one who intrigues others with understatement, who communicates selectively and purposefully with a minimalist approach, who rarely shows inner emotions, who remains calm in situations of pressure, who works independently without disclosing inside a process, and whose subtle style makes every detail more influential. Now, much of that actually resonates for me too. I notice that I often don't say everything about what I have in mind, what I might be planning. And that's not because I'm wanting to keep it hidden, but I feel like I want to just pace things out to gain interest and engagement. So there is that sense of intriguing others with understatement. And while it says that I rarely show inner emotion, I'm conscious that I certainly am a feeling person, and certainly if I become moved by something, I'm happy to show that, but I'm not driven by emotions, particular emotions. I'm very much driven by ideas. And so that plays out and new possibilities. So this is that combination of innovation and mystique. Then he goes on to say who you are: independent, logical, observant. And as I've mentioned, that's something that I know has always been a part of me, is my capacity and indeed my curiosity to observe people, to observe relationships, to observe the blending, the development, the conflict sometimes between different ideas, and liking to think that through. And how I add value as a Mystique: that I persuade others by selectively culling my words and actions. I make careful decisions, usually thinking before acting. And when I do share an idea or opinion, it carries more influence than it would for those who tend to overshare. So as I say, I have been one who tends to perhaps undershare. I'm learning to share certainly more, hopefully to inspire and support you. And then you'll see on the same page under the Mystique personality video, which I invite you, or for your archetype, invite you, whatever that personality type is, to click the video. And then you'll see a list of the 7 communication languages. And indeed, that's what we're going to look at next, is what these 7 languages are, what they mean, and you can understand how each one might have a significance for you. I'll invite you to pause here to read through your primary and secondary advantage, and then I'll take you through an overview on slides of the 7 advantages, just to really help you soak in who you are and what drives you and what makes you creatively unique. So as you can see on this slide, innovation is the language of creativity. Passion is the language of relationships. Power is the language of confidence. Prestige is the language of excellence. Trust is the language of stability. Mystique is the language of listening. And alert is the language of detail. So I'm just going to briefly take you through each of these in a little more detail, just to get the flavor of each. With innovation, it's about unfurling your wings, the fact that your brand speaks the language of creativity. It's about being forward-thinking, entrepreneurial, bold, surprising, and visionary. Whereas if you have passion as your primary or secondary advantage, it's about celebrating the heart. Notes here, you are intoxicating, that your brand speaks the language of relationship. So this is a very particular use of the word passion. It's about relationship rather than about passion per se, because we can be passionate in many different ways. We can be passionate about power and innovation, other things, but passion here is about relationship. So it's understood to be expressive. Indeed, it's very optimistic. It's sensory, it's warm, and above all, it's social. Now, when we look at the style of power, this is about something being your destiny, that you lead the way with authority. And indeed, your brand speaks the language of confidence. So this is not about a violating power, but it's certainly an assertive power. It's goal-oriented. You are a person, style is one of being decisive and purposeful, and indeed opinionated. Now, if we look at the prestige language, here is where it's about that sense of standing tall in the world, that your advantage is about rank and elevating your position or the people you want to raise in their position to the highest level. And so your brand speaks the language of excellence. And this is something, it's not just for you, but it's what you bring to those you want to serve. It's about being ambitious, about being results oriented. It's also about being respected and aspirational. And it certainly carries the quality of the elite, but without demeaning others. It's about raising the bar for everyone. Now, the trust communication style is about that sense of creating a safe, supportive environment. This is where people, as it says, we're counting on you. If you have the trust advantage, we look to you. You are the rock that we can lean on. Your brand speaks this language of stability. This is about you providing that quality of being stable, dependable, familiar, comforting, and predictable, and bringing that where you see it needed. Now, if you happen to have the style of Mystique, as you know I do, it's interesting to say that we're the rarest breed of brand, and that we tend to draw in an audience, making them curious to learn more, captivating their attention, and that the Mystique brand makes us come to them. So that's it, as in people come to us if we are Mystique. As Mystique, we are observant, calculated, we analyze things. We can be private too. And by that, we are curiosity provoking, but it's not a meaningless curiosity. It is substantive, that what we actually have to bring when people come near to us is of real value. And then finally, the style of alert. And again, people can count on us because we become a rule follower. We set the guidelines. Our brand persuades, if we have alert, the brand persuades others by defining deadlines and details, and that an alert person stands guard for the rest of a workplace, a community, a network, or whatever. So if you have the alert style, which is the style of details, the language of details, then you are very much a person who's organized, detailed, watching out for potential danger areas or risk or high risk. You're also, though, efficient, precise, and methodical. So those are the 7 communication styles. I hope that's useful for you as we go to the next section of your report. So welcome back to the Fascination Report profile. We're about to look at the next page, page 11. But just before we do, I'd like to note that as we've been looking at the 7 advantages, part of the significance of having a primary and secondary and so on is that, as with preferences in other aspects of our lives, we have preferences with our advantages. So our primary and secondary are things that come very naturally to us, very easy to us, like knowing whether your writing hand is your right hand or your left hand. When you write with the hand that you most commonly do, your preference, it flows easily and naturally. You could potentially use your other hand, but you know it's going to be a bit of a struggle. You can do it, but it requires more effort and energy. And so this is what's significant about our least likely preference. And this is identified as our dormant advantage. You'll know that dormant and advantage. So it's still an advantage, but it's one that's going to take away energy from us if we were to do it over an extended period of time. We could work to enhance it a bit, but we might at times need to hand over perhaps some of the aspects associated with that advantage to others to support us in a more collaborative enterprise. So you'll see as we look at this page, which is again page 11, you'll see what does it mean to have a dormant power advantage. And then on the right-hand side, it talks about why using that dormant advantage feels like quicksand. So I'm going to a slide where we'll look at this as how it impacts me. So my dormant advantage is power. It notes that why using power feels like quicksand. It actually kind of can drain energy. And it notes, your approach is obliging and flexible. You're typically not considered intimidating and tend to know how to adapt your message to the situation. You want others to like you. With friends, you're a good listener. At work, you're helpful. You typically listen with an open mind, taking care not to force your opinions on others. People confide in you because you tend not to judge. You allow others to make decisions and are comfortable letting others lead, unlike power personalities who strive to occupy the alpha dog position in the group. And that, I'll just note, is a strong resonance, because I'm not someone who is after a lot of power and after being decisive, and I indeed dislike controlling others. As you see, it talks about how to learn to activate the power advantage. And when forced to use it, it exhausts energy and focus. So I do need to consciously bring energy and focus when I need to be decisive, when I need to see action taken. And perhaps I need to also find others who can support me in doing that. But as it notes, find more opportunities to apply your top advantages, and then you're far more likely to exceed expectations at every turn. So that's a very useful advantage to our dormant advantage to be aware of. So now let's turn the page. We're now at page 12. We're coming near the end of the report as it applies to your immediate access to your creative uniqueness. And as I'll now share the slide, you'll see the first thing you see on this page is the intensity of your advantages. And for me, this is the most significant part of the whole test, because while you will have a archetype that there might be many other creators, many other actors might share your archetype, no one has this intensity of advantages the same way that you do. And that's why I was keen to share with you all 7 advantages, so that as you look at your blend of your advantages, you can begin to appreciate how you uniquely bring that archetype into play. And I will share with you now my pie chart of my percentages, and you'll see that my top one, being innovation, is 18%, followed by mystique at 16%, followed by prestige at 15%, then passion and trust together at 13%, with alert also at 13%, and then power at 12%. And how I like to see this, it tells me that what I do at my best is be innovative, but how I do what I do at my best is using my mystique advantage. And then why I do it is actually shared across three styles: passion, prestige, and alert. And you may recall that passion is the language of relationship, prestige is the language of excellence, and alert is the relationship of detail, or rather the language of detail. And so why I do what I do at my best is informed by my interest in people, in bringing them to feel better, more effective as a community, to set a high standard through prestige, and to pay attention to potential danger areas or fault lines through the use of alert. And power is my least active one, but it's one that also can make a contribution when I need to take action and make decisions. So I invite you now to pause and just look over what this mix for you is, and what are the things that you can lean to and celebrate as your creative uniqueness, particularly with this intensity of your advantages. So I hope you found that pause for reflection useful as you see the blend of the 7 advantages, how they apply in relation to your unique creative archetype, because it's that blend that makes you, whoever you are as an archetype, different from any other person who might share that same archetype. So this is a really key and invaluable part of this report. So we're now at the last 2 or so pages we have on page 13 that may be of relevance depending on the context you're in. If you do regularly work with teams, this could be a tool that you may like to explore. So feel free to contact me if you'd like to explore how to develop this awareness of the different styles that each of us bring to a working environment in terms of our communication languages, our preferences, our advantages. And as we bring co-workers together, they can share differing values, different advantages, so that the whole group can grow and have real impact and fascinate others. So that is a useful tool to consider. And then the final one is on page 14, which is where you can then further develop everything you've learned so far into an anthem or a tagline. It's kind of your song, your unique song that distinguishes you from every other person who might share your archetype. And it also reinforces that blend of what you bring into a community. So I'll give you, for example, my archetype is, as you know, the provocateur. And when I spent some extra time working through the process of developing an anthem, a tagline for myself, I came up with the fact that I like to serve my community with discerning empowerment. So that's what I deliver as a provocateur, uniquely me, is I deliver discerning empowerment. So it's about helping people that I work with discern what can empower them, what can liberate them to be fully their creative, unique selves. And so that's a good point for me to conclude this video. And I trust that in some way I have already started to deliver that for you, that discerning empowerment, so that you're able to really celebrate and lean into and enjoy being your creative uniqueness, who, as I say, you are created to be, not anyone else but you. And if you would like to explore creating your anthem, your personality tagline, do get in touch with me. I've provided contact details there, and we could have a conversation about what you could invest in to develop your tagline, your sorry, I've gone blank, your anthem, and that could actually take you then to further exploration of how you can embrace, celebrate, and actualize your creative uniqueness. Because I also do have ready to serve others who wish to go deeper. There's a Your Creative Uniqueness course. So again, if you'd like to inquire about that, do get in touch with me. But I hope this has been of great value to you. If you have any challenges, problems, questions, feel free to email me and I'll respond as quickly as I can. But I hope that that's really added extra value to your receiving the report, having completing the test, because I'm all about you celebrating and actualizing your creative uniqueness. So enjoy.